Hello, everyone. My name is Margaret Williamson, and I am the CEO of PERSEVERE, the American design house. Yes. And I'm so excited to be here with you guys right now and to have my husband in the seat next to me, Brandon Williamson. What's up?
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
Right, finally getting that interview.
Absolutely.
We'll just call this my show.
Right. Absolutely.
But the point, what we wanted to do is share with you guys a look back. Okay, here we go. Right, we'll get all the
Gadgets turned off. Right. Yeah.
Can't get some
Take it
respect.
seriously when it's your own stuff. Right. Yeah.
But we are about to turn 10 years old on September 19th, and it's causing us to do a lot, but mainly reflect and project. And I thought it would be interesting to record some of our process in doing so and kind of look back at the past, the present, and the future of PRSVR and talk through what we intended it to be, what it became, and now that we're kind of sitting in these driver's seats, what we want it to become in the next 10 years. So let's kick it off. When you started the brand, that was even before we launched.
Totally.
Yeah.
The idea and concept and starting point is way before the point in which we publicly say we start.
Totally.
Sure.
And so, you guys will have to watch the other shows to get the inside scoop on that. But we'll pick it up maybe then on our inception date. So since we're going to be 10 years anniversary, so saying, that September 19th, 2019.
Nope. That was why we did our 2019 anniversary.
Okay.
Because it was 91919. We came out in 2012 though.
Oh, right, duh, because then we'd only be 3 years old.
But the reason why you just asked me the other day, you're
Sorry.
like, why did we just do a party? Because we were 7.
That's why.
It's like we did it because that
9,
day would never be
19.
again for another
Okay.
100 years. So it's like
see,
you got to
guys?
take the opportunity to celebrate it like it's 1999. You know what I mean?
Exactly. You see, this is why you record and capture things,
Why you
because
do-
it's easy to forget.
Absolutely. This is true.
So we'll take it
Know
back
what I mean?
to September 19th, 2012.
Yep.
We were, yes, married.
Yep.
But what else was going on? What do you remember about that day?
Right. So we pushed it back. We were supposed to drop probably the 12th or the 5th or something like that. We were supposed to drop a little earlier in the month. But it was either the pictures didn't get done in time or I needed another product in order to do something. And it was like we wanted everything to be in before we actually took an order. There was some sort of discrepancy that made us push it back. And it had to have been the images being back on time. We just didn't have a launch to launch. I remember we had to push it back. I remember making our first sale, which was the actual first sale was a
Gym bag.
It was actually the pants. It's just the gym bag was the first official thing. Like, yeah, we had to make a website. There was a lot of work to do as to why it was pushed back.
We talk about that, right?
Yeah.
We met June of 2011. We were married January of 2012. I would say we probably started seriously talking about creating the brand was actually already created.
Yeah.
People might not know that.
Brand was the concept was created. There were no products.
Yeah, it didn't exist
when we
as
met.
it does.
When we met, there was no product that had been created that actually released.
Insane. I think I was a little bamboozled, but we'll get into that a little bit.
No, it was real. It's still real.
But okay, so when I met Brandon, he had the concept of this brand, and it was called PERSEVERE, and it was, based around footwear and luggage pieces, but a way to allow us to feel the exclusivity and the prestige of wearing luxury brands, but then giving us something of our own that we could support. That was an idea and concept that totally resonated with me. And then when I was able to see some of the samples that he had, from the sweatshirt he was wearing to the bag he was holding on our first dates.
So sorry.
It totally, it totally was an easy buy-in for me. And I didn't have vast business ownership experience, but I had worked for my fair share of entrepreneurs and had seen the inner workings of some businesses. I had left corporate America, and when I was introduced to Brandon and kind of heard that idea, it felt like finally everything was clicking into place, that I could run and create a business with the same person that I was loving and leading my life with.
Which was a vision that you had. This isn't your interview. This is actually mine. But that was a vision that you had prior. Like, man, if I had a partner, I would totally run a company with them. So it's, again, just those dreams becoming, dreams deferred.
Exactly, right? Just keep walking.
Right.
Keep walking, because you'll get there one or another. So fast
Mm-hmm.
forward, we've met. We are connected now. We're invested in this business, and we had developed the line. Why did we choose leather for the first collection?
I had met this fellow while I was trying to recreate a jacket that I really liked. It was this jacket from this company called Corpus, and they made this beautiful quilted leather jacket. Quilted leather, had I think it was like a pocket on the back, like a button snap button pocket, had this removable fur collar, and that was before, fur had really found its way into streetwear. So it was just a beautiful coat. And it was expensive. It was at this store called Untitled that was over in Wicker Park on North, right by Santulo's. You know what I mean? Like probably 2 doors down from the pizza place. So I would go in there and just look at this coat. The coat's bad. Ooh, this coat bad. I never tried it on because, I didn't have the money to buy it. So I don't want to waste nobody's time and see how I look and just to be disappointed when I get home because I can't get it. And then I saw regular tie in it. And I was like, dang, man, that guy gets everything. You know what I mean? Like he's the ultimate plug. And it was just like, dang, that's whack, that I couldn't get it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So time went on. And I remember my business partner at the time, I was telling him how much I loved the coat. And he was like, at Untitled, he was like, oh, that coat was on sale for $150 last week. You should have went and picked it up. Okay. So I didn't. So I met this fellow named Hindi, and I was like, I'm going to just recreate it and make the changes to it that I want to make to it so that I can have this coat because I really wanted that coat.
And, right, putting your money where your mouth is, I think that was the coat we got engaged in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Totally so. Yeah. So I made that coat. That was like the first coat that I made, first leather piece that I made. I was trying to, remake this coat. It was a bad coat. The coat I made, I ended up liking more, but that piece never came out because I literally copied it from another company. I didn't put it out.
But it was close. We did bring it back as the quilted cycle, the quilted bomber. The turtle top bomber.
Turtle top with squares. So we switched it from diamond quilts to square quilts because, again, I lifted that design. And then I padded the quilts, which my coat wasn't padded. It was flat. Then I made it navy and then the hardware. So just made a completely different coat. You know what I mean? A completely different coat.
But that I would say that that's kind of maybe one of the pillars of your personal design aesthetic is that I should know it by now, but it's part of my stick. The quote that you'll always say, about, because to me, it's not as important who said it, but what the point is, and that, we're all inspired and we take inspiration from everywhere, but what did we do that inspiration? Did we improve upon it or did we make something new?
Totally.
Most people pick one or the other. Brandon Williamson, wonderful designer of PERSEVERE, feels like you have to do both, right? Both make it both improve it and make something new from that inspiration. And so I think that's a great example, talking through that story of something that you were deeply inspired and moved by to the point of when you created it. And we can show, hopefully, some of those visual things on the screen now as we talk about it. And you guys can see the original code of the inspiration and where we've moved to with the turtle top bomber. And that's a great discussion for another day on how, designers can internalize inspiration and put it out in a way that doesn't feel like you're just copycatting.
It's true, for sure, because, a T-shirt is a T-shirt. You know what I mean? Whatever I do to make mine more unique, you still copy the original T-shirt maker, so you are also biting. So there's a fine line between it. Some people don't like sampling in music. Some people don't like borrowing age research. You know what I mean? Like some of those things that are very... That's my work.
It's so true. People do exclusify research, which is bananas to me.
Which is,
it takes a lot of effort and
it's
money.
Bananas. Things that should help mankind shouldn't be held to those standards. But then at the same time, design helps mankind at the same time. You know what I mean?
Right?
So
what was our mission from day one?
Yeah, to change the world. Through design, we've been able to achieve great feats in that. But again,
back to it, right?
Topics for another day.
So we talked about, we're approaching this 10-year. Our initial collection was leather.
Yes.
And, you said because you were inspired by this coat, you met someone who was able to make it happen. But how did you go from one piece of inspiration to a, 12-plus piece collection?
Once I had found the ability to work with this guy, You know what I mean? It changed everything. It allowed for me to make items one by one. I no longer was stuck behind the issue of, okay, cool, I'll make this product for you, but I need the initial investment of your sample, and you need to pay pretty much the deposit for the order at the time of the sample in order for them to do anything. So that was what I was being told.
Before, right?
Yeah, that was what I was being told as I was searching for manufacturing. So in searching for manufacturing, I found this guy that was able to do one at a time. It was more expensive than had I done 100 at the time, but where was I going to get the money and the space to put 100 of each item that I put in this collection? You know what I mean? So we didn't do that. We found that opportunity, and it just allowed for us to get to the good part of the story a lot faster. You know what I mean? We no longer had to, you know, come up with one design that we believe in so much, and I'm going to invest in that one, and that's the one we're going to pick, even though you might be wrong. So we didn't have that barrier to entry. We could make anything. So we made 12 items, and then we let the people decide which ones from this idea of a leather wardrobe, essentially. You know what I mean? If you get this leather wardrobe, which pieces would you pick to put into that wardrobe? You know, and that was literally the thought. It was, okay, I got this leather bomber now. What if I had a leather denim jacket, yo? Like, it wouldn't get all dirty and tattered like this one does. It would kind of just get better with age. You see, like, you know, the vision was old Levi's stuff. You know what I mean? Old Levi's denim jackets that did wear better. So it's like, okay, if I want the wear to just be there when it gets there, we need to kind of use a hide. A hide is a piece of leather that already has some finish and some patina to it and some different things that have already happened to already vintage it. You know what I mean? Persevere usually uses, you know, very shiny hardware. That one had antique hardware that was like already kind of rusted. You know what I mean? Like, you know, the leather was two-toned. It was already beat up and kind of worn through, but it was brand new. You know what I mean? So it was like this story of like, leather, you know what I mean? Like, and that was just because we could never get it. You know what I mean? Anytime you want to do anything leather, it's like, all right, cool, I'm gonna need like 17 cows for this, and you have to buy the cow before I go get the leather. You know what I mean? So you got to pay for me to get the leather off the cow. It is what it seemed like when they were saying how expensive it was. It was like, man, so we got to go get the cows and then drive them to y'all, and then y'all gonna do something. Like, it wasn't a thing that a black person could do at the time. You know what I mean? Which is what made it so unique.
Yeah, people in general, right? And I think that it's really cool as we have this conversation to pull out some of these insights, right? The first one is about, you know, taking inspiration, creating something new, that it doesn't have to be either an or. You don't just have to switch the logo on something and now call it your own. You can also improve upon it. You know what I mean? And create something new. The second point about, guys, like, rethink. If you've reached an obstacle or you're hitting a brick wall, the only option is not just to turn around, right? Like,
for sure,
you can pivot a little bit. And so Brandon spoke to that about, hey, yeah, it's not like, oh, he just all of a sudden when he met this man thought about creating a collection of clothing, right? No, it was probably a passion. It's a vision he's been sitting on for a long time, but you're looking for a way that opportunity can meet with your preparation. But the other third factor in that luck equation is usually your resources. And the traditional way to go into manufacturing and releasing a brand is like to meet these minimums, to have to pay for the full project. When you put down the deposit amount, you know, the deposit amount is based off the full project. You know, you can't get a sample. The sample costs even more than the full project would cost. All of these things that are built into the business of fashion to make it really hard barriers to entry, right? We've seen a lot of those things come down with the advancement of technology. But for you to have been doing that 10 years ago, right, was really paving the way and showing people a different way to do things. You know, when Brandon showed me, you know, we finally were getting the first collection, because what he did, he designed a whole collection, and then we got in one or two of each piece in our sizes, right? So that then we could start wearing those pieces around and getting orders placed, right? This was pre-Amazon time. So people were not, you know, Amazon was out, but it was not 2-day Prime, right? It was not 2-day delivery. And so for us to say that, you know, here you can come feel and touch. These pants are actually probably from 2012. This color, I think, came out in 2013, 14, right? But you know, to see someone wearing them, to be able to touch them, to know it was a physical product. It wasn't just a picture on the internet. And then to know that you could get those delivered to you within 10 to 15 days was not something that people were doing back then, especially at a more accessible price point. And
Definitely. Yeah. We, you know, we created great processes that changed the industry. The industry then, you know, a lot of people went on to go to made to order. Now I can, you know, give you $3,000 and then I'll go buy the Louis bag and then I'll cut the Louis. It's going to take you about 3 months.
Pre-orders really like that, and independent. You weren't able to.
The trust wasn't there. No. You know what I mean? That's that kind of business model is reserved for Barbara Bates or Dapper Dan or
maybe,
you know,
like a custom one-off made-to-order type of thing.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, one-off, multiple big money.
Yeah. Mass made-to-order. Right. So kind of how now you know, now we see Yeezy doing it. We see Fear of God. We see a lot of these big brands doing giant pre-orders.
Exactly.
But that was definitely our business strategy going into, especially
launching
footwear. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? But definitely launching where, we cut those overhead costs and expenses to bring in those one pieces.
Totally, because what that allowed, you know, we would have those 1 or 2 pieces. We would have a size that we could wear, and even just in thinking of that story, how young I was in that process, like I took my measurements but didn't add any loosening because I never measured myself for pants before. I just buy a 38 when I'm at the store. I never measure myself for pants. I didn't come from a background that said you gotta do these things and this is how you measure. Like everything that we've been able to do is learning and making the mistake and then implementing new information.
What, Brandon? Are you telling everyone you didn't go to school for this?
You might have heard that before.
Ring the alarm. No, not at all. I mean, I think people need to hear it. You know, I think that there's, you know, a myth out there that the majority of people's learning has to happen before they start doing the work. And that's so wrong, you know, that.
Yeah. I mean, we know at this point school has been created to babysit children while parents go to work.
Well, yes, but hopefully they get something good out of it too.
Hopefully they can learn to add or things like that. Exactly. Like you're going to need to put some extra stuff on top of that education. But in the realm of what I was trying to do, you know, is just being able to learn. Like, okay, so I didn't go to school for this. I went to school, and then what I was going to school for, I realized I also don't need to go to school for because I'll still have to learn.
Right.
The idea of going to college to get a job in business doesn't do as much for someone that wants to run a business. If you already know you want to run a business. Like I want my own business. I knew that when Circuit City was still available. Right, exactly.
I was wondering if you were going to tell that story, right? Like the difference between, and Brandon really shined a lot of light on this for me, between a business owner and an entrepreneur.
Totally.
Because for a long time, I thought they were pretty synonymous.
Yeah, and they definitely have similar DNA. You know what I mean? An entrepreneur, you know, it's and it kind of flip flops sometimes. But as a business owner, it's like you're there to fix something that's missing.
That you
know what I mean?
You knew you wanted to be a business owner,
right? Yes. Okay. Right. At the initial time, I knew I wanted to be a business owner. When I was out trying to figure things out, I was going to own a Circuit City. You know, I went to look at closed down Burger Kings to open sneaker stores, like just looking at different things because I knew I'd own a business because I wasn't trying to go back to school to finish this thing to teach me how to do this thing. Like if the information is in a book, I just need to go read the book. Right. You know, is how I felt. So when it came to fashion school, like, you know, I just wasn't in agreement with learning something that I might not need and then paying you for it. And potentially owing because fashion school is very expensive. You know what I mean? So since I already knew what I want to do, like I had opportunities to interview for Sean John when that was a big deal. Like, I'm cool. I know that I want to own a business. I'm not trying to go over there and carry Puff's duffel bag.
Yeah. I want to push back a little bit on that. All right, we'll do a transparent or whatever we want to call it.
We'll call it something later.
Right. I think that's the narrative that, you know, we've crafted it. When I heard you say it back this time, you know, and saying, okay, you knew you wanted to be a business owner, but then, sorry about that. You knew you wanted to be a business owner, and so you saw the opportunity with Circuit City, but maybe it wasn't a Circuit City, maybe it would be a, you know, a sneaker shop, or so it became clear that maybe it wasn't brand driven, right? That
I must have just seen a vision of a business and I owned it.
Right. And so then, you know, we say that the opportunity with Sean John came along and you turned it down because, I mean, at that point, did you decide, right, that you didn't, it did matter, the brand, that now given the opportunity to potentially run a business, you said, well, that's not really what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
And made that switch to entrepreneurship. So what does that look like internally?
So that's a great question. And I don't know that I fully examined that yet, but we can do
on
that
the fly.
today.
Yeah. Let's hear it.
All right. So it's like, okay, I went from, you know, feeling like I was going to sell Nikes in a store, in a sneaker store that I owned, or owning a Circuit City, or being some sort of landlord or something like that, to being like, you know what? You know, I remember this episode of Animaniacs. It's the only episode I really remember. And it's like this vision where like this voice is telling the small Animaniac characters, if you build it, people will come. You know what I mean? And every time they kind of got discouraged, it would just say like, again, if you build it, people will come.
Right.
And then they built it, and I don't think they came. You know what I mean? And
Tell
they were
them you
kind of
built it.
discouraged.
That's the
you know
third
what I
part
mean?
that leave out of that part.
Right,
That's
exactly.
marketing.
You know what I mean? Right. That's marketing. That's marketing. You know what I mean? You can build it all the days of your life. And at the time, we didn't know that.
No.
That wasn't. It was literally if you build it, because there's nothing here being built. Step one.
Some people get it backwards. That's another talk we can do, right?
Yeah.
When you hear them get the marketing out first and say, like, we'll build it on the back end, and that's a much easier way to do it, right? And that's, you know, if we prolong down our history and we talk through some of the different strategies that we've embarked upon.
Yeah, totally.
It's easy to fall into that, but sometimes you're digging yourself a hole because
right. Some people
you don't
don't
know
work
what the
that
product's
way.
going to be
Exactly. Yeah. Right. That's a very good point, actually. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So right, and switching from it being, you know, I'm just gonna run in this rat race, or like feel like I'll own some McDonald's. There was a guy in Michigan, in Detroit, Timmy D, I think his name was. He owned like a seafood restaurant. He owned a McDonald's. He had all these Wendy's and stuff. But then he eventually got locked up for fraud because he was doing fraud. You know what I mean? So it's
sometimes
like
it's hard not to.
Sometimes it's hard not to, because you get these different things. So it's like I didn't want to get into that, because now you're exposed to other people and just the way that they do things. And I knew very early on that I was very self-contained with how I felt like it should be done. I just didn't know how to go about it.
Right. So now you feel like, and I went through a similar, you know, feeling where I
Probably
figured I would be a corporate, exactly around the same time, I'm sure. You know, thought I'd always be like a company man, and realized that I just, no matter what, could never feel strong enough. It feels like the first time I had to break up with a fiance, I had to just say, like, I don't, I don't think I feel the way that I should feel if this is going to be forever. Right. I don't think I'm as connected to this position or to this brand or company in a way that I should be if I was really going to donate all of my life to it. And that's the way that I viewed jobs, you know, like totally. I just can't get that passionate about cigarettes or a boutique things. Or, you know, another someone else's brand.
Totally. And it's just, you know, and that was I'm sorry, please go ahead.
No. I mean, it's a conversation back and forth. Yeah.
For sure. Right. And that was one big thing on my end, like working. You know what I mean? I knew that since I didn't have the education at that point, that it would be more difficult for me to get the jobs that I needed to get the money to run the business.
Like, are we coping mechanisms? Like, was I afraid of authority and, you know, had a problem following directions, which is why I've created this narrative to say I wanted to move into entrepreneurship? Or is it like, just lean into yourself? And it's like, if you're naturally averse to that, like, find
those things are both exactly the same. If you decide to say, you know what, I think I'm done with this, I need to create a reason as to why this makes sense for me, is the same thing as being pushed to it and being forced to make sense of it now that you're in it. Whether you decide to, because again, like I've got a thing where I feel like I make better decisions under pressure. So I'll subconsciously or superconsciously build pressure. You know what I mean? Ignore bill collectors to the 27th. You know what I mean? Not think about the rent to the 28th. You know what I mean? Just to, okay, I need a 5-day plan. I need you on first, you on second, you on third. All right, cool. I got the bases loaded. Games on the line. It's the championships. Right. George Steinbrenner's in the top office screaming down, he's got the bases loaded. So it's like, yo, what you going to do, B?
But then, like, on day 6, we're always like, you know, instead of a 5-day plan, that really could be a 30-day plan. But it's like, could it?
It could be if you weren't burnt out on the 6th from all that work you had to do on the 27th.
Like,
you know what I mean?
Off.
Yeah, you need 5 days. Then it's the weekend. And now it's the weekend. It's family fun week.
Right,
you know what I mean? Yeah, okay,
back
sorry. We'll edit that out because that's not what this is about.
Anyway,
Stay on task. Right. So it was just a matter of, like, deciding to say, like, all right, I'm back and I'm working on this business for something that I want to do.
Right. So now, okay, so we've made that change, and we both probably at the same time, I think we were both around 27, 28 when you realize, okay, it has to be something I want to do on my own. right? We're still holding jobs, but we knew that it was going to be something out of our own hands, our own minds, that our lives would be committed to separately from each other, right? We hadn't met yet.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you get the courage to, or is it the courage? What word do you put in there to decide this is what it's going to be? It's going to be this footwear and clothing brand called PERSEVERE, based on this, with that. Like, did you go through many other entrepreneurial potentials before arriving on that, or was it just always going to be that? Did someone else decide for you?
So, like, you know, I had a sneaker customization business that before I started the brand, which is how I got to the brand.
Mm-hmm.
So aside from the leather jackets, that was just a pause in time because, of course, we did Soul Searcher in between those things. And I probably started the brand in 99, 2001, somewhere in that world.
So PERSEVERE, right, for all the people, was not Brandon's, like, first business.
It was my first. No, it was not my first business. Right. You're absolutely right. My first business was #1 Draft Kicks. Same year LeBron was drafted. I think that was like 03. I had a sneaker customization business where I would paint Air Force Ones, paint, you know, Dunks, different shoes like that, do super customization, sew denim, take paisley and put it all over shoes and Gucci fabric.
I would say we're going to run through pictures of all these designs, but they don't exist.
Got a couple,
right?
but
It's
yeah,
a little black market trading.
Whole nother thing, right? Yeah. They told us not to take pictures. We listened, and that was not the right information.
Instagram, right?
Yeah, way before. Right. So it was like in creating, and you know, I was making these products, these custom products. So I was doing #1 Draft Kicks, and then a friend of mine came along, and I don't think he really liked the name, or he was like, well, I need a name that kind of has my take on it too. You know what I mean? He was more so concerned with sales. I was concerned with the work part of it. So I was the one painting and doing the work. Yeah, it's work for me. You know what I mean? That's not the work I'm going to do. So it's like I felt I was much better serviced in the realm of creating the product and being meticulous in that part. So, you know, he was like, all right, we should rename it to Fresh Out the Box. These designs are fresh out the box. It's something fresh. It's something new. You know what I mean? So like that actually works way better than #1 Draft Kicks. I just wasn't all the way tapped into my creativity at the time. Yeah, it was not. It's just like, again, level 1, level 3. You know what I mean? You go level 7, you can be like, whoa. You know what I mean? Right. So it's just different ways in which we can, you know, cultivate the story that we're going to tell. Yes. You know, I mean, #1 Draft Kicks, it was very sports related. It was very built around that. Fresh Out the Box began to get more into fashion. It got more into innovation and being like, you know, how can we get new boxes? How can we go to fabric stores and get stuff that's not popular and make it popular? Then,
you know, you say that you weren't the original designer, but it's like, I don't know. We get into this backstory. Do we start when we launched? Sometimes I think the backstory is important for people to understand where it came from.
Just depends on how you package it later.
So you said,
I'm gonna have it all in the spot.
You know that you were not the designer when the brand, and I say brand, the big picture of the brand, of the origin story of PERSEVERE.
Yeah. My job is, my dad's job, you know, is just get it done. Go get the stuff done. My dad would just go get it done. They would hire him at his jobs, and he'd be this position, they call him and do the other position. And then they'd be like, can you help me with accounting too? And then he would save them all the money, and they wouldn't give him any, but he would be like, and I saved y'all some money. Right. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, and they paid him well. They took care of him and all those things, but then they forced him to retire. So it's like, you did all that work, and all of your DNA is all over that. And then they can say, you know what, Vern, you did a good job, man. You should just take some time off. You know what I mean? And he did.
Did you feel like that similar scenario could happen because you had partners?
No. That particular scenario was related to not going to feel like I was going to get a career.
Right, of course, right? Level 1.
I'm anti-career because.
And then you went over here.
Yeah. So now.
And then you had partners, right? So when they started the concept, it was Brandon, a couple college roommates. Like he said, they were doing sneaker customization. They grew it into fashion. It became PERSEVERE, and then.
Yeah. So it's like in that I wasn't the designer initially. I was over production. So I would take care of the production, take the drawings and the different design elements, and then go make products and go pick the materials and bring it back to them. We would all, of course, discuss it and go over it in detail together. Right. But I was tasked with going to get it and bring it back. You know, so that was what I was good at, you know, and I'd proven myself in that. So it's like to grow from that, you know, I wanted to get into designing. I just wasn't a designer. I would kind of tell them my ideas, and they'd be like, yeah, leave that to us.
So interesting. And so then we met,
We did.
And what was happening internally around then, like with the brand? Were these the same partners that you had Soul Search with?
Yep, those were my only partners I've had other than you.
Mm-hmm.
But we had started Soul Search. You know, we took our money. I had another partner of mine, Frank, who's in the Air Force, lend us some money to start this app. So since it wasn't a lot of money, I had to learn the code myself. They didn't learn the code. They had jobs and they were not able to code. I might not have at the time.
Oh, okay.
I was always in between. I would only get the job to get the money that I needed, and I was quitting. I went to Paris
Gig economy
and
before the
quit.
gig economy existed.
Yeah. These were the gigs. How good can you get in here before it's over? So, you know, it was just being allowed to, I was allowed to then go and code and then create, you know what I mean? Like, but not in the realm of designing. I had the ideas all handed to me, and then now it's my job to go and put them into the market, you know, and again, being anointed to do so.
Right.
That was what promised that those things in that work would go well.
So you guys were going around, you were touring out the app, kind of going on a publicity tour for that. But where was Persevere? Like, what was happening on that side of things?
So Persevere was always at the forefront when we were doing Soul Search. We kind of used Soul Search as a vehicle to get Persevere into these stores that Soul Search was covering. So if Leaders is a sneaker store and we put them in the app, we kind of felt like based upon that goodwill, they would rock with us on Persevere. You know what I mean? Since you got Soul Search and we got you in the app, hey, I also got this brand. Let me just come in and give you that too, because I'm the guy that's bringing people into the store. You know what I mean? I'm bringing traffic directly here. It should be a layup. And it was. You know what I mean? We just never dropped the product at the time that the app was around. Some stores received it well. Other stores just didn't get it.
Right.
You know what I mean? It was way before Instagram. You know what I mean?
It was Urban Spoon days.
Right. So that's shake up the phone and it'll tell you where to go eat. Like, no, now we go. Beginning of Grubhub.
Apps, right. Daily use apps.
Totally.
And so Persevere was persevering, but not really making progress.
Right. We hadn't made any sales. We didn't have any product to sell. It was still just like samples or like visions or like excitement. You know what I mean? Right. It was just the ability to be like, hey, man, I got these ideas, and they're way better than the stuff we see in the store.
For how long before 2019?
What happened in 2019?
I mean, 2012.
Oh, how long before 2009 was I working?
2012. How long before 2012 were you guys, like, persevering with this concept of a brand, making sample one-off products, hosting events, promoting the
Persevere
concept
especially started in 2004.
Okay.
To where, you know, because Nike would only sell the all-white Air Force Ones or all-white shoes that we would use as our base models for customization. They would only sell them through the warm months. So once wintertime came, they would stop selling them. So we didn't have a good base shoe. We would have to go get like a black Air Force One, and nobody likes those. Right. You know what I mean? Painted or not, you just don't want that shoe. So you need a white one as a good base at the time for us. And then, you know, we kind of fell into like the underworld from there. You know what I mean? Like the illegal world of like
the world
sneakers.
Of manufacturing and production.
Definitely. And like the underworld of manufacturing and production.
How things
where
really
we would get how things really get done. We would find stores that would give us their stock. You know, this is before Yeezy time, so we just buy out their whole lot of Air Force Ones and pay a little more. And then eventually it just got really interesting. I don't know if we'll cover that part today.
But eventually, you know, someone's saying like, hey, why don't you guys just make your own shoe? Yes. And that's the birth of the coalition.
Totally. Through the frustration that we were having with finding the all-white Air Force One, a colleague of ours who was handling manufacturing on some other supporting products, he was like, man, you guys shouldn't really chance doing this. You should just go make your own product.
And this was how much before you had that similar kind of aha moment with the leather coat? Like, okay, instead of lusting after this other one, maybe we should just make our own.
Yeah, that was 2003.
So boom, boom, back to back kind of thing.
Everything was like right in that pocket because we didn't go through many years of needing that white Air Force One because it was just impossible. Like you couldn't run a business where 6 months out of the year you don't have any supply.
Especially if you live in cold weather.
Oh, my goodness. Right. Yeah. So there was no supply. We would go to Walters in Atlanta and be like, I need all the Air Force Ones you can sell me, but it'd be 3 pair. Right. You know what I mean? So it just put a halt on it. So for about 2 or 3 years, probably 2 years, we would only work part of the year. You know what I mean? If we could get something in, we would just do it sparingly. Yeah. You know, so it was, again, growing from that. So it was back to back. And then we did the pre-order because, jumping ahead, after we finally got tired of that Nike issue, we just did decided to go and try to make our own shoe. Initially being told that, to say, hey, you guys should just do that. My initial thought was, of course, like, how are 3 black dudes from Michigan going to make their own shoe?
So how did they?
It only took about 7 or 8 years from that day in order to do it, but we had to persevere. There was no choice.
Pun intended.
Intended, yeah, for sure.
Yes. So, we kind of have jumped back around, but catching it back up, when I met Brandon again, they had the concept of the brand. They had some of these samples. So at that point, I could actually physically touch the sample of this white shoe that had then been birthed out of this like turmoil and obstacle. I could see the leather jacket that was now his creation. I didn't know that it was inspired by anything else. Like, he had this amazing duffel bag that unzipped end to end, full leather and like incredible colorways. So product existed. Why not release it? Like, what was?
I didn't know how.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I thought there would have been more pomp and circumstance when you say that you're releasing a product, or, if someone sees something that's cool, that there would be, a kind of made in America moment where everything falls into place and kind of lets you know you're on the right path. And it didn't. So, I would make products like, famously I made this biker jacket that had the sleeves zip off and turn it to a vest. And it would explain that, through using the app, I'm going from Chicago to Miami, and I might not need these sleeves in Miami.
Yeah.
So instead of packing a lot, because I would put everything in my one PERSEVERE duffel bag to travel, okay, what can I not take?
Yeah.
So then when we get to Miami, it's like, oh, man, what kind of jacket is that?
You made that jacket before PERSEVERE released? Or
yes.
You're talking about the combination cycle?
We made it as a denim jacket first.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that.
It wasn't PERSEVERE yet.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't PERSEVERE yet, but it did exist. The space hoodie, things existed.
Totally.
The space hoodie, the peanut butter jelly gym bag, those 3 gym bag colors that we put out. Like, we were making product. It wasn't tagged as PERSEVERE. Some things had the logo, like our pay logo. Some things did, but it was still very early.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we weren't ready to go to market, and we couldn't go to market because you had to buy 100 of them. Right. So we would pay that sample fee and then just kind of be left with the samples.
And I want you guys to hear what he's saying, that this was a concept and a brand, you know what I mean, to all that was involved since 2008, 2004, I think he said. So now we're at 2012. You guys have jumped the hurdles of actual going to product creation, but still feeling like it's still really early, that we're not ready yet. And that's a natural feeling, right? So I want all of those that are listening and saying like, oh, I've had this dream, I've had this vision, but it's been 5 years, it's been 3 years, and I still feel like I am where I am. Do you feel like those 8 years between conceptualization and then our final public release was just treading water, or do you feel like you were swimming in ocean? Like,
it was swimming in ocean, but I feel like it was boat prep. We could have. It's an ocean, so if you get in the ocean,
you need a boat. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Why you here, bro? By yourself, right? Yeah, right. Don't get in by yourself, and we're all in the ocean. You know what I mean? So what are you doing here? What are you trying to say? And I just thought, if I get in the ocean, then that means I can swim.
Right, totally.
You know what I mean? And it's just like,
or like when you get to the ocean, the boat will appear. Do you know what I mean? Like the something, or if I brought my boat to the ocean, the fuel will appear. Something.
Or that people would get on my boat. Yeah. Because I brought a boat, and none of you guys have boats. Right. You know what I mean? Right. So I figured that and it wasn't Puff's boat, it wasn't Elon Musk's boat. But it was nice.
So I think it was
a nice boat.
When I met Brandon, all they lacked, and I'll just be honest, right, was a monetization method, and that's sometimes what keeps a lot of people from taking that next step, is like putting a price tag on your pieces and saying, if you trade me cash for this, I'll get you what you expect. And, that's the root of commerce. That's what, differentiates all the ideas from being businesses, right? Because we have to have an exchange of goods and services. That's what entrepreneurs, right? Exchange goods and services with people all the time, right?
Right?
So when I met him, I had just come off this corporate world. You know what I mean? Like, I've always been kind of on the sales or on the value exchange side of business. Like, okay, what is this company going to trade this person for this. And so it was clear to me that there was value in what you guys could create. Now, I don't know, did I cause ripples coming into the picture, or like what do you think caused the breakup of the original partnership? Or was there a breakup? Like, how would you even speak
I think
to
that
in 5 minutes?
that's a good question. So I think that I have a knack to accept what y'all are already trying to do. So I won't speak to it. I could have asked more questions with them. I could have spoken more to figure out and resolve all the problems that we had internally. But it's like, if y'all are already fizzling, I'm not going to be the one to say, hey, everyone rally back around me. And that might not be the right approach to do things at times, but we're all grown men. You know what I mean? Like,
someone else could have done it, right? Totally.
Totally. Yeah, right. Or we could have just all stopped. And I wasn't
and it
willing
wasn't
to
immediate.
Do that.
You know, I don't feel like I Yoko Ono'd them, even though I don't really know how she did it either. So
I don't even know who that is. Is she a wrestler? Who is Yoko Ono?
She famously broke up the Beatles.
I'll listen to that. Yeah. But go
Me
ahead.
neither.
Okay, cool.
But yes, you know, thinking that it wasn't like, oh, I came on and tried to like hijack the business, because we all crafted it together.
Totally.
You know, I definitely, when we talk about thinking back to, you know, September of 2012, it's still, you know, sitting on the living room floor with Jermaine, which is one of the original partners, and his wife, and like, you know, talking through pricing. Like, what do we want these things to be priced? What do we want these things to be called? Like, that formation stage. And so the other partners did stay on through that initial launch phase. I can't quite remember the roles that were being played. You know, Jermaine definitely did some of that early graphic work for sure. You know, you were not yet jumping into the designer seat.
I learned a lot from them, and it was good timing for me to do so. And I think that they have gone on to do much better than they would have had we not met each other. Just as I myself, I would not be as great as I am at the things that I've learned through them had they not been there. There's no way in the world. But at the same token, I know that they wouldn't have had the foresight to follow through had I not followed through. Had they not stopped and been like, well, what do I have? I don't know that they would have seen what potential they have. Like, these are creative directors and creators of now
they're big, right? We're 10 years later and everyone's individually successful. So it's really, you know, it's exciting. It's just, you know, interesting. And I say it because, you know, sometimes what you see today, right, was not necessarily what was yesterday.
Yeah. And it was a tough move on just in even you. You didn't come in as an owner. You didn't come in as an executive. You came in as a worker. You had to work.
So rude.
You had to work, and you had to spend your money. You had to drop bread. You had to put money up.
You like a ridiculous bamboozle.
You put up the company car. You had never had your taxes flipped before. You know what I mean? So it was like, oh, snap.
No, I'm just kidding.
You've had your taxes flipped for the past 10 years. You living good off your taxes, bro. You all right. You know what I mean? But right, like, you had never had that happen. So it was like a very like honest, you know, approach to like hustling. You know what I mean? And it was just like, it was admirable. You know what I mean? Like, you ain't no slouch. You're not silly or anything like that. Like, you could see money going out and not coming in. Like, you understood it, but it was like, okay, I'm on board with the process.
Because
I'm paying my
understood
dues.
The strategy, and I knew the potential. Do you know what I mean? And that's
we
the
all
difference,
did.
is that when you step out of even working for other entrepreneurs, right? And I challenge everyone to do so, because it's really interesting when you start to analyze the risk structure, right? Because that's all that entrepreneurship really is like risk tolerance. And so, you know, you have to go through a period where it's like, okay, I know that if I invest $5 to make this T-shirt, I could sell it for $25 and make $20, right? But how much does it cost me to sell it? Right. So it's like all these like costs and risks and
variables.
How much can I float? Do you know what I mean? Those front end costs for this potential payoff, which to me, I had worked for a lot of entrepreneurs, but I hadn't found something that I was willing to invest my money into yet. And then being able to have it be fashion was exciting. And then to be able to understand the multiple, right? So I didn't choose to marry or invest in a t-shirt business, right?
Mm-mm.
And that's strategically, right? Because I'd worked in volume sales, and that's a lot of work, right? It's usually big money, but that means you have to talk to big players. And if you're talking to individuals, which is where the market was going back in 2012, was like internet shopping was just beginning to blossom. And so you were finally being able to move from just doing traditional retail, which was selling to big box stores, only buying wholesale stockists, to buy these lump sums, minimum buys, to then reflecting a direct-to-consumer approach where it's like, okay, now I know I'm going to be hand-to-hand.
Yeah,
All right, well, that's where I excel through relationship, hand-to-hand.
But I'm going to need more money.
Exactly, but I can't do it for $20. You know what I mean? I don't think I could sell you in 20 seconds. Then I'd do it for $20. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, we created a business model that would bring out the best of both of our skills.
Totally.
Best of my skills is ability to see multiples in one thing. You know what I mean? So although, it's just a leather factory. Oh, we can get a winter coat, we can get some pants, we can get a denim jacket, we can get a padded coat, we can get some jean pants, we can get some ski pants, you can get a parka, you can get a long coat, you can get a hoodie, you can get a bomber jacket all leather, you get a bomber jacket all suede. It just, I can see those things. And so based upon seeing, pick one, Playboy. These are all t-shirts on the wall, but these are expensive t-shirts on the wall.
What if we pick all of them? And that was, one of my determining factors was, like I said, Brandon had these physical samples. We made the physical samples and things that we could wear and walk around in to get live feedback on, and to ask people, how much would you pay for this?
Right. Literally asking. We were in, what was that store? What store? Ferragamo. Right? We got to recreate that scene for the show. We got to figure out a way. But we were in Ferragamo, and, he was like, oh, I like that shirt. And it's like, how much did you pay for it, though? Right. You know what I mean? And being bold enough to seek out that answer at the time.
At
we're
the
not
time.
that bold
I would
anymore.
never.
No, we'll never do anything. I don't want to turn the lights on. Turn these lights off. Who's in here? Who's out there? You ain't going out there, bro. Scary out there.
Right.
Ooh. But I think the big part of it, like, definitely, like, you were able to, show what it was going to take. You know what I mean? And I don't know that my relationship with them would have been able to stay having had to go through those things. Because, again, we're talking about a company. Like, a company's worth is only validated by what it can make or what it will make. So with us attributing value to product, it's like, okay, we have to do something that will eventually allow for you to feel like it's investable. You know what I mean? And that took 10 years. It could have been quicker.
Yeah, totally. We're at a much different phase.
And we made money throughout those 10 years. We made lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of money. But for someone to say, like, this is worth that, at 2 years, you haven't been around long enough to prove that. No. At 4 years, the people that were around for 4 years with us were no longer there. So there was a run of people not doing well by fashion. You know what I mean? You would invest in it, and then it wouldn't work. You'd invest in it, and then it wouldn't work.
And I think that's right. That's sometimes the with independency, right? We look at the same thing with independent artists. We were talking yesterday about how, now I feel like I need to move to things that are only made in someone's kitchen in order to feel confident. And like, how backward is that? Where it's like, before I would never eat out of someone else's kitchen. Now I'm like, I need to know, like, what are the raw ingredients here, people, because I don't want anything slipped in this. But that's the issue, right? And maybe times are turning. And so when we talk about, like, the future of Persevere, I think we're at a really good position. But when we think about 10 years ago, you only trusted the man. How
could you trust anyone else?
Right.
Again, because that brainwashing happens from upstairs.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? You want to go to the radio station.
Yeah, you can only buy from Saks. I only want to get what's at Barney's. Yeah. Like, we were trained to shop at the malls. Like, you associated value with the store that it was provided from. It didn't necessarily even matter what the brand was. If the store co-signed it and it was in there, you could say it's from Leaders. You could say it's from RSVP. And that's how people were getting on. So to be an independent brand without the backing of the man, of the machine, it's just still so cool to me, to use the smallest word possible, that we were able to penetrate the market in the way that we did. So totally. What was that on purpose? Like, do you feel like when we look back that we had a really clear strategy? There's parts of me that says, like, yeah, we totally did. And then there's other parts that's just like, I was just living each day. Do you know what I mean? I was opening the emails as they came.
And there were some big emails.
And they were big emails. You know what I mean?
So, and again, you're asking some really good questions, and I appreciate that because we don't talk about these things at all. So, with that, we you know, you were saying how, oh, the game is trained to be this certain way and that you're trained to only buy from Saks and from these places. Like, you know, I was trained to disrupt, you know what I mean? From watching literally Jay-Z's whole career, you know, it was disruptive. You know what I mean? You got this person that isn't the most attractive, doesn't rap the way everybody else raps, is saying things that are borderline, you shouldn't say that. You know what I mean? I don't think you can back all that up, but like, you've never heard of a story where Jay-Z got beat up or Jay-Z got robbed or Jay-Z beat up somebody or Jay-Z robbed someone. Like, he kind of like was able to continue to grow because he was willing to do what you weren't willing to do. You know what I mean? Like, put up your own money. All right, bet I'm put up my own money. Write your own raps without writing anything. Got you. You know what I mean? Like, start a record label by yourself with two dudes who don't do music. Got it. You know what I mean? Like, this recipe for disruption. And it watch this. And he did it. Time and again, it's like I didn't ever understand why I appreciated that so much. But I did because it showed a way to do it. Totally. Like, if you're in this spot and you know you've got the talent and you're not getting the yeses, do this. But then I was also trained by Nas to be a perfectionist in the product that you're creating. And then again, like, now I'm creating Nas' product, but I'm walking around like Hov made it. Right. You know what I mean? So it just created a confidence to disrupt all of the things that are going on out here and requiring you to look at me. And
I think so poignant, right? I want to keep going in that because I think so many people, we find models, you know, I wouldn't even call them role models, but you know what I mean? Examples of the paths that we think we want to go down.
Ways to cut the brick. But go ahead.
Right. We find the people that do the cutting, and then we say, I like that style. But I think a lot of us then think we have to follow literally in their footsteps, like be in the same field, to pick up the same genre, like do the same practices. But here you are telling us that you have modeled this fashion career off of music artists. It's
just different approaches. You know what I mean? So whereas Ralph Lauren may look at things and go and look at it this way and do it this way, we can look at it and say, okay, he wasn't doing things that were music specific. You know, he was going to disrupt the radio station. Like, he was going to rap, but I'm going to disrupt Fashion Week. You're not at Fashion Week. I am now. You know what I mean? And I invited people to come with me. So it's like, we have to, if we just did what Margiela did, then I'd just be being Margiela. So I can't be Margiela. Like, you couldn't be another MF Doom. Like, Doom already did it.
I was talking about cross-industry collaborations, but cross-industry inspirations.
Totally. Because there wasn't anyone for us to look up to.
We're going to take a break right there.
For sure.
Really interesting conversation. Thanks, Brandon.
For sure. No problemo.
Persevere, the past. Stay tuned for the present and the future.
For sure. They here? Okay, cool. Bet it. All right, baby. Coming back up, right?
Yeah.